Welcome to the channel. If you've been here before, you know how I like to start these videos, but if you're new, hi, I'm Saul. I'm building a real-time, strategy-based, story-driven trading card game. It's going to be digital, available on iOS and Android devices. Now, I've made various videos touching on various elements of this game's design, why things were done the way that they were done, what's coming out in the game, and in this video, I would like to touch on how my game approaches the ban list problem, as I'd like to call it. Now, Summoner's Nexus is a brand new game that is still very much in development. I have planned out roughly 6 years worth of card releases potentially, but the thing about thinking about longevity is that you have to think about long-term game balance. There's a struggle that long-running series run into, and that is the struggle of balancing existing cards against the new ones that come into the fold, and the resulting difference is what we call power creep. It's basically the cycle through which the newer cards come and outclass whatever was there before over and over and over again, and it's almost unavoidable when you're making a trading card game. Almost. See, companies could in theory increase the power of their game horizontally instead of vertically by introducing new mechanics into their game and things that do different things. Not necessarily better than what's in place, but differently from what's in place. Now that sounds really good in theory, but in practice, that's very difficult to do without making your game too bloated, especially for games that run on for an extended period of time. It just becomes too much for new and existing players to deal with if every other week you're adding a new feature or new mechanic to the game. The easier option, and the option that most card games go with, is to increase the power of their game vertically. That is just a direct increase to the stats, power, any feature of an existing card. Like if there's a card that searches out another card and then they release another card that searches the same card but also destroys something on the field, well, that to me is an example of vertical power creep, at least how I understand the concept. I've more or less taught myself how to design games, so vertical power creep and horizontal, like those could all have different definitions. That's just how I understand those concepts. Now, since most games increase their power vertically, there are a lot of cards that get released that end up so powerful that they break the meta. They effectively warp the meta around their existence because they're so good. You either have to include them or have to prepare to face them. And when that happens, it's up to the creators of the game to fix the issue, lest that single card destroy their entire game. So there's various solutions. There's various ways that developers go about trying to fix broken cards in their games, sometimes through ban lists, sometimes through set rotation, so on and so forth. Some games also use erratas to just change the card text of broken cards, and having thought about all three, I wasn't sure how much I liked any of them for Summoner's Nexus. I don't like set rotations because I am a baby, and when my favorite cards aren't in rotation, I completely lose interest, so that doesn't work for me. And I also don't like erratas because when my favorite card is super awesome and I've just cherished this card so much, gets errated to then become useless, I lose that sentimental value and connection to the game. This is a game that's supposed to be enjoyed by me primarily. Like, you guys can all come, you're all allowed to play it. It's just, I'm doing this for me, and so I need to be able to enjoy the systems that I put in place. Ban lists for me are the worst out of the bunch because what tends to happen is the card in question that is being banned is usually part of an existing strategy, and then, oh, something that we didn't consider over here on the right is completely broken. So the card gets taken away from everyone, which it just doesn't let me play the card at all, which I really dislike. I'm the kind of person who builds the Lego sets exactly the way they appear on the box, right? Give it to me, tell me how it's supposed to work, and that's what I'm gonna do. I enjoy that, right? I follow the instructions. But the thing about having a game with a diverse ecosystem and a thriving community and dedicated fans is that they are going to find all of these different combinations of cards that you could never have anticipated, like, going together, and as a result of that, there's going to be broken combinations that eventually get found by things that were never supposed to be related in the first place. And Yu-Gi-Oh's approach to fixing that problem is to limit or ban the problem cards in those scenarios. The problem with that, though, is me over here on the left, who is just playing the card the way it was intended to be played. Well, I have now also been punished for this. That, my friends, is why I came up with what I call the synergy system. Cards in my game belong to families called subsets of related cards, and each card in that subset will have a dedicated number ascribed to it. Now, your synergy rating, the number that you've been ascribed, is the number of other cards from your subset that must be in place in the player's deck for you to activate your effects. So for example, to put it in a more straightforward way, let's say I have a card with a synergy rating of 5. Well, what that means is of the 10 cards that can go into your deck, the 10 avatars, 5 of them have to be from that card's subset, or else that card will not be able to use its effects in battle. You can still take it into a game, but its effects will not be activatable. This lets people build from the Lego box lots without limiting their options too narrowly. You can still mix subsets, and that's absolutely fine. I encourage that diversity, but if there's ever a problem combination of cards that weren't intended to interact together, well, I can just increase synergy rating of one of those two cards without having any impact on its intended function or its card text. It can still work perfectly the way that it was intended, and we address the issue of the card that it's interacting with from outside of its subset. Now the card has to be changed or banned, you just can't play them together anymore. And I mean, with that being said, erratas may still come into the picture, because what if the two cards causing a problem are from the same subset? And what if they are generic cards? Generic cards don't have a synergy rating, so they can just be put into any deck, they just can't be in the player's starting hand. So what about those, right? So erratas might be on the horizon. It's one of the benefits of having a digital TCG, but synergy ratings will always be my first resort for balance changes. Then we go to erratas, and then maybe, like, way off in the future, if there's something that I just cannot control, something that just was not balanced well enough in testing, maybe we consider a ban list, so like a Hall of Fame with things that have a synergy rating of 11, which makes it physically impossible for them to use their effects, but you could still put them in your decks if you wanted to. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. The game will hopefully be out in 2025 with an open beta, hopefully early that year. So subscribe to get updates on like how to play, where to go, so on and so forth. Leave a like because it helps us out. It helps the game to do better, and the better the game does, the better it is for existing players, right? The more people we have on the server, so on and so forth. So share it with your friends, all that good stuff, and have a wonderful day. Take care.